Monday of this week, close to 200 employees held a walkout at Riot Games in protest of forced arbitration, sexual discrimination. It was the crescendo of a timeline that kicked off with a report from Kotaku in August of 2018 that initially outlined the culture at Riot Games. What followed in the months after was what many label as a series of missteps by Riot Games to adequately address the situation. Joining us now from the West Coast is Emily Rand, and Emily was at the walkout. But before we get to that, Emily, bring us up to speed on how we got to this moment.
In early August is when the Kotaku released their report that said they interviewed about 28 current and former employees about kind of toxic elements of Riot Games' work culture, including sexual discrimination and harassment allegations in there. What followed was kind of a series of steps that Riot took to try to address this within the company. In November of 2018 is when the first lawsuits against Riot were filed. And throughout this, again, there's more stuff to fill in the timeline in terms of Riot trying to make their own diversity and culture initiatives within the company, interviewing people, talking to other writers, etc. Meanwhile, those two lawsuits are filed. Then most recently, it came out that Riot had moved 2 of the 5 total employees that were in litigation into private arbitration rather than a larger public lawsuit. And this is when the first talk of a walkout started. I know Waypoint reported that there had been talks previously, but it was the move to private arbitration that really set off this particular walkout in motion. And it's something that a lot of tech companies have had to address recently with, Google, Uber, Facebook. They all actually recently eradicated private arbitration either specifically for sexual harassment and discrimination cases or entirely. So it's not only just something going on at Riot specifically, but it ties into a larger kind of moment in tech and gaming.
Thank you for that overview, Emily. Now, you were at the walkout, as we said. Can you describe the atmosphere and how people were feeling and what they were saying?
I think if I had to describe the atmosphere, it would actually be really inspirational and a lot more hopeful than I thought it would be. These people who are speaking, first of all, they have incredible courage, and I have nothing but respect for them, the fact that they're standing up for what they believe in. Additionally, you can really tell that they care about the company. They don't want to be seen as anti-Riot, and this is something that was repeated ad nauseum throughout several speeches. People did bring up their negative experiences, obviously, but as a whole, people actually called out Riot for listening to them in a lot of regards, and the big sticking point is just this private arbitration. Why do we want to move these cases out of the public eye and into a private setting, which generally is known to favor larger corporations rather than the people filing the lawsuits? So that's the big sticking point. But all in all, the atmosphere was actually really good. There wasn't a lot of negativity. It was all about rioters supporting each other and trying to make the entire company better.
Now, Emily, as you mentioned before in this segment, Riot has taken a few steps to address these situations. They hired Angela Roseborough as their Chief Diversity Officer. They rebuilt their investigation process, and they expanded their diversity and inclusion initiative. But pretty clearly, there's room to grow. There is more ground to cover based off of this walkout. So what's next for Riot and the Riot employees?
The big thing is this private arbitration for people currently in litigation, right? Riot actually already pivoted a bit, and they previously had said, it's always going to be private arbitration. It's in employee contracts. However, after rumors of the walkout surfaced, they actually said, okay, we're going to remove this in future employee contracts. So this is not going to be a part of Riot going forward. but we're not going to do it for people currently in litigation. And once litigation is over, we'll then revisit employee contracts for current rioters as well.
Emily Rand, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your coverage of the Riot Games walkout. And for more on developing stories like this in and around esports, you can keep it locked right here on ESPN.com/esports.